The timekeeping module within eSchedule is extremely powerful. A number of customers come to us specifically due to our ability to configure and customize a timekeeping solution for them. As you might imagine, public safety has a lot of different ways of tracking time, whether it's hourly or salary, stipends, weekend pay, overnight pay. We are in the business of specializing in configuring a timekeeping solution to meet your needs. So we have a lot of different ways to track time within eSchedule, whether you have employees clocking in and clocking out, which is the standard sort of typical way of doing it, or maybe you don't. Maybe you have salaried employees or people that only get paid additional if they're held over late or coming in early. We have a lot of different ways to keep track of that time for you, and I'll walk you through those different options. We do also have a biometric finger scan add-on available, so if you are not interested in having your employees use their password, which they would key into eSchedule to clock in and out, we can also send you a biometric finger scanner, which you can then connect to your computer. Your employee would then scan their finger, and that is what they would use to clock in and out at the beginning and end of their shift. Otherwise, you can control punches, so for those employees that are clocking in and out by location. So you're going to tell eSchedule where or which computers or stations or networks that the employees are able to clock in and out from. So that could be on a mobile device, it could be on a single computer within your station, or anywhere in between. That's a setting that you can control right within your account in eSchedule. Everything revolves around what we call a grace period. So if someone is scheduled to start work at 7 a.m., you need to tell eSchedule what the grace period is. Are they allowed to clock in 5 minutes early and get paid for it? 10 minutes? 15 minutes? Same thing at the end of their shift. If they're late getting out, what's the grace period? So is it after 20 minutes or 30 minutes that they have to tell you why they're late? That's really what controls what we call exception tracking within eSchedule, and we'll talk about that. And then lastly, the paid time off management and then integration with payroll. We'll touch on that through this video as well. So your standard clock in and out, as I mentioned just prior, if the employee comes in, they log into eSchedule. If they are in a location that you have approved, they're going to see either a clock in or a clock out link at the top bar there. So eSchedule is then going to look, we know what time it is right now, we know what time they're scheduled, and depending on the grace period rules that you have set up, it's going to check the schedule, check the logic, and then determine if the employee can go ahead and clock in. Now, if they're on time and within the grace period, everything is good to go. Now, if they're punching in too early or they're punching in late, or maybe they're trying to punch in because they're not scheduled at all for whatever reason, they can still do so. So employees can always clock in and out. They just have to put in a comment. So this is where they're going to tell you why they're late or why they're coming in early, or maybe they came in for a meeting with somebody. They can do that, as well as checking an activity type there, which you see where it says Station 121. All right, and they can go ahead and clock in nice and easily from there. Now, everything that falls outside of your grace period is going to come into your exception tracking. So this is your best friend in terms of checks and balances. Every row here is an exception. So these people either came in late, or they punched out late, or they came in and weren't scheduled. So this is where you can use to control the punches and make sure that everything is looking accurate. So you can do a bulk or a multi-approval of exceptions if you want to do that down the left-hand side, or you can very easily go into any one of these entries and make a fix if you needed to change someone's time for whatever reason. We do also offer what we call a manual clock in or a manual punch in and out. So you'll notice that this employee here, last name Cohen, has logged in. They're logging some time for a meeting with the chief. So on February 4th from 0830 to 1247, they're logging some time into the system. They have to put a comment in there. And then from there, a couple things can happen. Either this time can go right onto their time card if that's a setting that you want to have happen, or we can have everything go back onto that exception screen for approval before it goes on to the employee Cohen's time card here. Now this can also be used in conjunction with the other standard clock in and out. So this is great if you have employees that are clocking in from home or a training class or a conference, or you want them to just manually log time. You're welcome to use this screen. Now this is the Timecard Admin screen. So as an administrator, or what we call a Timecard administrator, you can come in here and you have complete control over all the punches. So if you need to fix someone's punch time, you can do that, or maybe change the activity type or pay type, or if you just need to manually add some time onto someone's time card, you have the ability to do that nice and easily right within eSchedule. Transfer shifts, this is a less used option, but it is getting more popular. We have a lot of customers now that don't necessarily want their employees to clock in and out. What this does is it takes all of the scheduled shifts for a period of time, and it moves those shifts automatically onto the time card in bulk. So you could do it for a single day, multiple days, or an entire pay period. And once again, it's going to take whatever schedule shifts are there and move them onto the time cards automatically. Great for salaried employees or for those employees that don't necessarily need to or that you don't want to actually have clock in and out. The MultiPunch is a great tool that gives you access to providing multiple people the same amount of pay for an event. So if you have a staff meeting or a training class or something like that, you can come in here, check the boxes of who attended, and then go ahead and get everybody pay on their time card for the same amount of time and for the same pay type. This is what the time card itself looks like. So this is Robert Ferguson's time card for a 2-week pay period. Every row on the time card, and this is again 24/7 access, so Robert can see his time card as he goes throughout his work week. Every row is a shift that he's worked. If he has any exceptions, those are going to show up. So he was in late 9 minutes on September 3rd. He was out late 21 minutes, and you can see the comments that Robert put into the system there. It's also going to show Robert his scheduled shift name and position as well. Now over to the right, those white columns that you see, those are what we call earnings codes. So every earnings code setup is going to be different for each customer that we work with. So these columns here are going to match the payroll system that you use, whether it's a software or a payroll provider. We will work with you and work with them to make sure that the earnings codes match up accordingly. So if it's regular time, overtime, holiday pay, sick pay, any sorts of PTO or comp time, we can work that into the system here for you. Down in the lower left, you can see the paid time off balances. So you can have multiple what we call banks of PTO, and we can also handle accruals for those. So if you're accruing either monthly or annually or even by hours worked, we can work with you to set up those accruals to happen automatically. And then lastly, if you want to have your employees digitally sign their time card, you can do that, as well as a supervisor is welcome to sign that time card as well. Payroll report. So at the end of every pay period, you're going to come into eSchedule and download a file, and that file can then be easily sent off to your payroll software or payroll company. So once again, we will work with you to figure out what file format you need. From here, you can either print this file, email it, upload it, whatever it is that you need to do with this information. But it's really just a summary of the number of hours for each employee by earnings code, and then that can once again get imported into the payroll system nice and easily. And then lastly, paid time off management. Your employees have the ability at any time to come in and request PTO into the future. And then down at the bottom, you as a manager or anyone who is a scheduler can come in here, take a look at the paid time off requests, see who wants it off, and then you can go ahead and either approve or reject those PTO requests. Once they do that, the schedule will get updated accordingly, removing the employee from the schedule at that point.